Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I have the Get to Know the Writer tag. I was tagged by Dane of Dane Reads and this tag was created by somebody out there in the ether. I have been tagged more than a public toilet at this point. Everybody's names are scrawled all over me in graffiti. This channel has become nothing more than me answering questions for content. Might it have been an ideal idea to save all these for Vlogmas? Maybe. But personally, I'm just trying to get them out of the way so that I don't end up with a backlog, such as I did. Anyway, this is all about getting to know a writer, apparently. I've only just watched it, so let's go. 1. At what time of day do you usually write? An ideal day for me would be to spend my day off work writing from 9 till 5, but oftentimes I'm finding that I actually don't write until I'm in bed. So recently, from the hours of about 10:30 until 1 o'clock in the morning, I have been doing most of my writing. 2. Do you outline your work or just wing it? I outline. I never used to. I used to be one of these people who just go in, knew how the story was going to begin, how the story was going to end, and maybe what would happen in each chapter, which is how I wrote Our Doris and the children's book the first time round. With Our Doris, I had a list of 10 titles, and in those 10 titles, I wrote one sentence of what would happen in that story, and things went from there. With Indisputably Doris, I tried the same thing and then found myself planning more. Nowadays, I tend to fill notebooks of this size with my plans. I still do the one sentence thing of writing out what's going to happen in that chapter in one line. That's usually what's going to further the plot in that story. Then I go more into depth, and then when I'm trying to work things out, I will write a list of this leads into this, leads into this, until I get to the end, and that's why I use these notebooks. And then I write longhand into one of these notebooks because I just like to scroll, and scrolling I don't think I can do in a very nice looking notebook. It just doesn't seem conducive to producing good work for me because I always want to be neat. 3. What author or authors do you admire the most? Firstly, I have to include Joanne Harris because I mention her writing all the time. She is an author who has written across various genres and also has a really great way with words. Her use of language is stunning, and I am constantly baffled by how explorative she is in her fiction. We've had thrillers, both psychological and just simply thrilling. We've had a touch of romance to magical realism stories. We have even had a bit of family history with a historical novel in there and a bit of vampires. Joanne Harris also has a series in which she talks about writing on YouTube, so I'll leave a link to that in the description. Another author I feel I ought to mention is Robin Hobb, who wrote the Realm of the Elderling series. That is 16 books made up of 4 series, and they have some of my favourite pieces of writing in there. I still think that the Live Ship Traders trilogy is my favourite amongst them all. There is a dog barking in the background, but I still want to get this video done. So 4, what's your least favourite genre to write or read? I've said this before, and similar to Dane, it is romance. Strangely enough, whenever I wrote young adult fiction when I was younger, there was always the potential love interest and there was always a strong romance elements there. I think it came with the territory of writing young adult fiction, and there was always a potential love interest, and every time I was reading about writing young adult fiction there was always this thing of including that person there. Whether or not they actually fell in love, there always needed to be that aspect to the book. I even met with young adult writers in the UK who hadn't included romance in their stories and were being told to find something within the story and include it and heighten it. So you could often read it in some books at the time where it had been forced by an editor as opposed to being a natural part of the story. In terms of Our Doris, I'd say that those stories have hints of romance there, and there are hints of love and sentimentality in those books. But that's, you know, we've gone past the romantic part, really. We've gone past the part where these characters are meeting and going through all that. Meanwhile, my mother firmly reads Mills and Boon books and stories of that ilk. So there is someone in my family actually contributing towards making sure that romance writers are able to continue their careers. In terms of writing, it's not something that I would necessarily steer clear from. It's just that I might do it a bit differently, and I think that Dane mentions in his video how romance and horror fiction are stories that can always pull from other sorts of genres. Like, you could set a horror novel in a setting you could set a horror novel in the same setting you set a romance novel in. I mean, haven't we seen many romantic stories set in hospitals? There are many horror stories set in hospitals. How about a romantic horror story set in a hospital? It all starts out, you know, you think that the new consultant is about to get with a porter, sort of Lady Chatterley's lover type situation. And then some sort of horror starts to rampage through the hospital and begins to test their love for one another. Or possible romance. See where I'm going with this? Or did I just really describe Holby City? General Hospital, Grey's Anatomy, Casualty. There's many. 5. Do you want writing to be a hobby, or is your goal to write full-time? I would like to be able to write full-time. Personally, I am the least sociable person that I know, and I've always said that I'd like to write full-time. The whole reason that I only have a part-time job is that I could keep so many days open to be able to write on my days off. Also, as aforementioned sometime in the past, in 2013, when I first got my job, that was because when I left uni, I had no money to my name and I still had to pay rent. And it just happened to be a coincidence that the charity I volunteered for was opening a new shop. And so I applied and I got the job. Luckily for me, they decided to employ me a month earlier, and I went to work at a different shop for a month before I went to the shop that I'd applied for. At the time, there was a position for 3 days and there was a position for 4 days, and they gave me the 3-day position. But I didn't mind so much because the young adult novel that I was submitting everywhere, I'd been asked for a full manuscript by an agent. This agent had the story whilst I was starting my job. I believed that it was going to be the big thing for me, that this would be my break, because I thought that the story was great and I wasn't getting any form rejections. Unfortunately, the story did get rejected. I put it aside. I ended up working for the charity, released Doris myself 2 years later, and it's been 5 years of releasing books now, and it certainly helps to subsidise my income and helps me to pay my rent. But I think if we looked at my finances of the last 5 years, I would probably be able to pay 2 months' rent with what I have earned, which is strange when you think about how many people have read my books, how many people around the world know of my books and read them, how many books I know that I've sold. But hey, I'm only over here paying rent. Saying all this, you know, my books are always linked in the description if you would like to help me pay my rent. 6. What's the hardest part of writing for you? It's the 30,000 word mark. Whenever I hit 30,000 words, I always seem to question whether I'm writing the right thing and whether I ought not go back and rewrite everything, which is why the last few chapters of the final Doris book have been incredibly difficult for me to write, because I'm at that point where I'm constantly doubting what I've written before. And being the writer that I am, I don't like to wait till the end to edit everything. I like to edit as I go. I end up rereading stuff. I also have to reread things because I feel like I've used a joke previously, and sometimes I can't remember whether I've already given a piece of information before. So it's a constant case of going back and forth and checking everything as I move forward. From 30,000 words onwards is difficult for me, but then I enter into the home stretch. Being completely the opposite to Dane here, who said he finds the final 20,000 words a bit more difficult, I see the final 20,000 words, and because I can see the finish line, I end up going incredibly quickly and finishing the book. 7. Do you have a writing routine? I wish I did. I wish I was able to cultivate some sort of routine. My day is currently routined, which sees me awaken before 9 o'clock, get ready before 9 o'clock, and attempt to begin my day as I would if I was at work. So that includes answering emails as the first thing I do, and checking YouTube to see if anyone's posted that I feel like I need to support their channel in a certain type of way. Then I am writing up what I have written the previous night, from 11 till 1, as aforementioned. My father usually gets home, I make him a cup of tea, there's some chatting going on, and then recently I have actually been going up the field more and helping my dad. So whilst I know nothing about farming, I do make quite a good gate post to stop sheep getting past. So the other day I stopped sheep going down a lane so we could transfer them from one field to the other, and yesterday I stood so a sheep couldn't get past. And I also got to handle syringes and hand them to my younger brother yesterday. And I got to hold spray and hand that to my younger brother as well. Basically, I am useless, but they find uses for me. So then, usually I'm gone from between the hours of maybe 12:30 till 5, come home, set about making tea, sit down at 7, more YouTube and stuff, and then 9 o'clock usually everyone else has gone to bed. I do Duolingo, I do some reading, and then 10:30 until 1, I am focusing on getting writing done, and sometimes Sudoku as well. I will say that this does seem to have helped my insomnia a bit, but I can't say whether actually not going to sleep until after 1 and waking up so early is good for me in terms of sleep. 8. What's your solution to writer's block? I have been writing novels since I was 11, so for 17 years I have been writing novels. I used to do 2 novels every year up until the age of about 15, maybe 17, I can't remember, but I wrote a lot of novels then, and I still haven't found a solution to writer's block. I say sometimes when I'm writing Doris, I have to write my way in, and so I write a lot of terrible stuff that is just said this, said this, said this, said this, because I know what's got to happen. So I write what's got to happen, very bare bones, find my way into the story, and then write, and obviously then fix the earlier bit later on. But I do say to people, maybe write your way in, so write really terrible writing just to get yourself back into a part of the story, because I think sometimes it's just writing the connective stuff for me that's the problem, the bits that join other parts together, because I know I've got to get from point A to point B, but sometimes it's difficult to figure out how to do that. 9. How long have you had a writing blog? I originally started a writing blog in 2009 where I talked about my writing and I talked about the books I was reading and I reviewed them on there. In 2014, 2015, around that time, I would blog about my days as well and talk about stuff that had come up at uni, but I then changed it from a blog where I reviewed stuff, because I could disappear for years at a time, post stuff for a few weeks really regularly and then just not do anything. So I just changed it to a general website in 2015 to discuss my journey with R. Doris, and then subsequently I just changed it. There is no more news on there. There used to be news. Now it's just my website where you can buy my books from and where you can read the first 4 episodes of my radio play for free. And yeah, mostly that in 2015 I also transferred everything over to YouTube, and somehow I actually find BookTube easier to do than book blogging. I don't know whether it's because I do it unscripted and I'm not having to write anything down. I just ramble at the camera for so long. But I do find this much easier than I did the blog. But as with everything, even though I don't edit these fantastically, it takes its time. And 10, do you think having a writing blog has helped your writing in any way? So back in the day when I did have a writing blog, I can't say that it did. And since I've joined BookTube, I can only say that the way it's helped me is discovering other indie writers and getting to chat to other indie writers and building something of the network between us. I think that had I not started the BookTube channel, then obviously I wouldn't have spoken to Dane, who discovered my books and who I hired to edit and air to Murder. So I think that, yes, it has helped my writing, but, you know, for the most part, it hasn't actually taught me anything new. So basically what I'm saying is, yeah, it's helped me make a bit of money and discover new people and realise that, you know, and talk to people who are actually writing and releasing our books independently. And, you know, folk have got in touch with me and I've read their works because of this channel. And sometimes, you know, it's great. It's a great platform that has helped me connect with more people. But in terms of actually teaching me anything about craft, no. Then we're supposed to tag some people, but all I can say is that most of the people I know who are writers, Dane has already tagged. And so alternatively, I'm just going to go and look in my subscriptions. Okay, so I am going to tag Kelly and Martin Books, Amy of Zoe Beck, and there was another person, Cat Up Brews and Reviews. 3 people I usually like to tag 5. I would have also tagged Jason's Weird Reads and Emma of Emma Rosa Books, but Dane got them already. There we go. That's one more tag erased from my to-do list. If you would like to discuss writing, if you would like to support me as an indie author, you know, books make great Christmas presents and I've written some great books. I can say that. Then links to my books are available in the description. If you would like to talk about anything I've talked about here, then please feel free to do so in the comments. I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and until next time, that is all.